I grew up in a military family. I'm an Army brat and moved all over the United States. And then for my senior year of high school, our family was transferred to Cairo, Egypt. So I graduated from an international school there and kind of got the travel bug. Um, I left school early to get married. My husband and I joined the Peace Corps, served in Turkey for 2 years in a remote village doing the traditional Peace Corps stuff. And afterwards, he joined the Foreign Service. And a few years after that, when the regulations changed that allowed married couples to serve in the same places for the first time, a fair number of women joined for the first time. Few formerly married officers were able to come back, but I hadn't served before. So then we had a whole long career together in the Foreign Service, mostly in the Middle East. And for my sins, I guess my last two assignments were in Australia and Canada. So ended on a more civilized note than I'd started. And I retired right after leaving, right after I retired from the Foreign Service. My husband was very ill, and we decided to make Kent County our full-time home. We'd bought a farm here years earlier, and the kids all kind of spent summers and had fun here. A good place to live and learn and go on with life. And that worked out really, really well. For the first time, I had the opportunity to do other kinds of community service that were really hard when you live overseas. So I was on the board of the Historical Society for quite a long time. I was briefly on the vestry at Old St. Paul's, and quickly rekindled a love for community theater that I had pretty much abandoned in high school, and became very active, mostly at Churchill Theater, where I've been on and off the board for about 20 years now. And then when the opportunity for a different kind of public service came up, I had no good reason to say no. So I said, I'll stand for a Ward 1 election, and successfully have enjoyed the last 10 months or so. That's a really good metaphor. I like watching the sausage get made. There are no job descriptions for being a council member, and as far as I know, for being a mayor. One of my neighbors asked me, what's the job description? And I said there wasn't one, and she didn't believe me. And she went online and got back and said, no, I couldn't find it either. So it's really all on the job training. And Mayor Foster and the other members of the council have been really, really helpful at helping me figure that out. The meetings are conducted by a very strict kind of Robert's Rule of Order fashion, so we have to dot our I's and cross our T's. And if we goof, the clerk always can remind us, you've got to do this or that, and we back up a little bit. The other thing that's really interesting, I think, about local government is we have very, very strict open meeting rules. So all of our meetings, both for the council and the commissions and the committees, are held in public. They're announced ahead of time. The agenda is out there ahead of time. They're recorded so people can watch them live, or they're backed up for a certain period of time anyway, and you can go back and consult those. We make a real effort to get out to the public, but no matter how hard we try, it's really difficult, I think, to reach everyone. There are not print newspapers the way there were a generation ago, and the town will publish and print ads for elections and important things. Interviews like this are important. I still think there's a lot more that the town can do by perhaps improving our website and making sure that the announcements we post on our webpage are a little easier for the residents to tackle and find the right place to go for help or information. I feel rather passionately that the new middle school is an absolutely essential thing for Chestertown to have if we're going to succeed as a community. I know that the funding problems are real, and I don't fault the county commissioners for the problem they're having. There is not enough money, And we can get into the background and so on. I'd like to. That's something I'm trying to learn a lot more about. But the idea that we could just move all of the middle school students and stick them in the high school because there's room is so short-sighted and so unfair to these kids. I think the high school could probably double the number of high school students it has without too much problem, because maybe there are 15 kids in a class now. You could enlarge the class size. But the laboratories and any special learning environments are not made for teaching 7th graders at the same time that you're teaching 11th graders. It just wouldn't work academically. And I do believe that the younger cohort of 5th through 8th grade deserves their own space, and it needs to be a good one. Yeah. I've done a lot of door knocking, and I've run into a few people who have surprised me by not really supporting building the new middle school, but almost everyone thinks it's a good idea. And certainly everyone I've met with school-age children or really grandchildren who might be attending the school thinks it's pretty fine. The reasons against it, one person thought it would be too noisy because they live right behind the school. And a few people just wondered why it was necessary to spend that much money. Couldn't we just spend it to fix things up better? But I think they were not very involved with studying the issues. So it does seem like a great deal of money until you realize how much things cost now. I've been coming to Chestertown off and on since the mid-90s and have lived in the community full-time since 2000. And I think in many ways the community, Chestertown, is better now than it was in the past. I really do. There were a lot of people that were weekenders who perhaps came here only occasionally, and during COVID decided to make it a full-time residence. And I believe there were a number of younger families too, that with kids, who decided that this was a good, safe place to live full-time. The spirit in town I find wonderful. We're getting a little bit older, and I think every single person I've talked to would love to have more new families come in. We love all the retired folks who come here and enrich the community in so many ways, but we would love to have some of the local kids who would love to stay in Chestertown be able to afford to stay here. And that's going to be a big problem. It's a national problem. It's not just a Chestertown problem. It's not a Kent County problem.
Yeah, so we're back to employment and housing.
Yeah, employment and housing and growth. And the towns, I think, are always the engines for this, but we have to have the cooperation of the county too. I don't know enough about their planning and zoning regulations that might make it harder to build in the county, but together our interests coincide. So the county has to find some way that we can increase our growth rate. We're way at the bottom of Maryland in terms of economic development. I think there are like really three things. It's the tax differential that the town has been concerned about for a long time is there. There are different ways of figuring it out, but we're one of only a few counties in Maryland that has not reached an agreement between the county and the town. And by the reckoning, we should be getting somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million a year returned to us in one way or another. The county probably cannot afford to do it right now. And the same reason that we're stuck with the school issue, by some measurements we are a very wealthy county, and by a number of others we're down at the bottom. And I think a lot of that is because we are so agricultural. And cropland, farmland has been valued at $500 an acre for tax purposes for decades. And I've been doing searches recently, tried to find farm for sale. I can't find any like tillable land for under $10,000 an acre. And if it's anywhere near like the 301 corridor, beautiful 40, 50 acre plot, good farmland, is selling for close to $25,000 an acre, or at least being offered at that price. And probably back in the 80s, 500 was close to the sales price, but it's just nowhere near now. And the county counts on all those farms for its tax revenues. I think, you know, the farmhouse, if it's a really beautiful one, and there are a lot of gorgeous buildings, especially on the creeks and the waterways, where the house will be maybe $1 million or maybe $5 million, and that valuation will be adjusted with regular, you know, inspections and so on. But the farmland will be $500 an acre for the foreseeable future, and that's Maryland-wide. The county has nothing to do with that.
I did not know that. I thought it was a county issue.
No, it's the whole state. So there's some real political heavy lifting, and I would hope that our town council and Rock Hall, the other bigger town, can work with the commissioners and try to then convince our elected officials at the state level and Andy Harris at the national level that somehow we need to revise this in some way that makes it fairer to everybody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Some people have said, you know, I always look at Chestertown a little bit as Williamsburg in the snow globe.
No.
And it's close to my heart.
Okay.
Yeah. So the contention sometimes is, you know, that it really needs to modernize itself. And, and then I hear people say, oh no, it's fine the way it is.
The real reason I think Chestertown has been so successful is that it got kind of neglected for a very long time. So we have this huge expanse of historic 18th and 19th century buildings that are still being used today the way they were then. Mostly for family homes, but some of them have been turned into businesses, and we make the improvements that are needed to make them suitable for modern life. We're not advocating coal-fired furnaces and, you know, oil lamps or something. And when these historic homes were enlarged, maybe in the 1800s, building them out and raising them up, that was just going with the times. So today, I think really any of the downtown buildings, as long as the outside facade is kept almost as intact as is humanly possible, how we rearrange the insides has been left up to modern families. And the tourists will come, but so far we're not Annapolis and we're not St. Michael's. One of our big challenges in town is that we've been a fully developed town for 300 years, and our city limits are pretty tight. There's not much room left for new development. And so we have to be very careful and judicious, I think, in trying to plan for that, some mix of new commercial space, and hopefully getting a restaurant on the waterfront. I cannot believe that we only ever had one, and we haven't had it for quite a while now. I think that's well underway. We won't know until it's done, but the plans are that it will reopen and serve the community. We're kind of stuck where Betterton is now, because the new solar field that's going on right now on Morgneck Road was designated for Chestertown's housing growth area, and that we lost out on that decision, and I know Betterton is looking at the same thing with the solar field practically in their downtown. Although we have two solar projects going on right now in our wastewater plant. I mean, one that's been there for a while, another one that is almost ready for really starting. We will be issuing a bond, and we have full commitment to go forward with that. And then there's another one that we're investigating where there would be floating panels on the ponds, on the wastewater lagoons. I've been so honored to do this and really impressed by the caliber of the people that work for the town. we only have about 36 folks, maybe 40 if you count all of the elected people as well. But it's a small number of people that do a lot of work. And that wouldn't be possible without the boards, the commissions, and the committees that take on everything from managing our trees to planning the parks and all the zoning, long-term planning. We've got people with wonderful credentials that give collectively thousands of hours of time out of their love for the community. And working with them is an honor. Sometimes a challenge because they know a lot more than we do about almost everything. We are generalists and they get to specialize. So that's been a lot of fun. And I mean, I've loved the digging. A problem comes up and nobody really has the information, so you go to the internet and you start going down rabbit holes and they get smaller and tighter, and then you reach out to someone who puts you down another one. And it's a useful way for me as an elected person without, like I said, without a job description to use my skills and for the better good.